Hello, everyone, and welcome to the California Department of Education's Literacy Knowledge Building video series. In this video, Gina Garcia-Smith from the California Department of Education will discuss how we can support English learners with disabilities. Before we begin, let's go over a brief bit of background on the Literacy Knowledge video series. This series is a series of videos on critical topics in literacy, birth through grade 12. It was developed by the California Department of Education and literacy experts in the state literacy team, and it is complementary to the work of the Federal Comprehensive Literacy State Development Grants. You can learn more about the Comprehensive Literacy State Development Grant by going to the California Department of Education's website and searching for CLSD. The purpose of this video series is to provide guidance and resources on critical topics in literacy, support the work of the CLSD grants, and build coherence between California's literacy guidance documents, standards, and frameworks and how they all support literacy. A major objective of the CLSD grant is to bring coherence between California's guiding documents, some of which you see here, including the California Preschool Learning Foundations, the California Infant Toddler Learning and Development Foundations, the California Practitioner's Guide for Educating English Learners with Disabilities, the California Dyslexia Guidelines, and the California English Learner Roadmap Policy. Other content area standards and frameworks support literacy as well. The videos produced in this series will illustrate the connections between all of these documents and also explain how the documents themselves support literacy development for our students. Videos will be produced over the course of the CLSD grant period. To be informed when new videos are posted, join the CLSD listserv by sending a blank email to join-california-literacy-state-development-program@mlist.cde.ca.gov. And now I will turn it over to Gina.
I will be discussing English learners with disabilities and how to support them. My name is Gina Garcia-Smith, and I'm an education programs consultant with the English Learner Support Division at the California Department of Education, or CDE. The information I will share today comes from two key CDE documents: the California Practitioner's Guide for Educating English Learners with Disabilities, or Practitioner's Guide, and the California English Learner Roadmap, Strengthening Comprehensive Educational Policies, Programs, and Practices for English Learners, or California EL Roadmap. First, we will discuss the Practitioner's Guide. The Practitioner's Guide was published in 2019 and is available for free download on the CDE English Learners with Disabilities webpage. You can find this page by searching for the Practitioner's Guide on the CDE website. The purpose of the Practitioner's Guide is established in California Education Code, or EC Section 56305. The purpose is to provide guidance to general and special educational educators from transitional kindergarten through grade 12 to help appropriately identify and support English learners who may qualify for special education and related services and English learners with diagnosed disabilities. This guide includes sections on identification of English learners, multi-tiered system of supports, and pre-referral interventions. Pre-referral and referral, assessment and individualized education program, or IEP processes, educational programs and instructional strategies, proposing exit from special education services, and reclassification for English learner status. The Practitioner's Guide consists of section overviews listing chapters within the section. Each chapter includes a section titled Questions Addressed in this Chapter, which provides questions the chapter will address for teachers and administrators. These questions are intended to inspire conversation and planning. This is followed by a section called Chapter Overview, which summarizes the contents of the chapter. A snapshot of the chapter overview is shown on this slide. Each chapter in the Practitioner's Guide also provides a student scenario located near the end of each chapter. Student scenarios are case studies that synthesize the information provided in each chapter. After the student scenario, a brief chapter summary is provided, followed by frequently asked questions, or FAQs, as shown on this slide. Chapter 9, Reclassifying Students with Disabilities from English Learner Status, also provides FAQs but does not have a chapter summary. This is an example of a process flow chart to aid in the initial referral and decision-making process for English learners who, as determined by performance data across settings, analysis of strengths and weaknesses, and comparison to peers, may be experiencing academic and/or behavioral difficulties. This flowchart is described in Chapter 3 and is provided in full in Appendix 3.5 of the Practitioner's Guide. California EC Section 56305 recommended that flowcharts be included as part of the Practitioner's Guide. While this guide contains a wealth of relevant information, the Practitioner's Guide provides some key information that connects to today's webinar. The guide provides supports in distinguishing between a language learning need and a disability, emphasizes the importance of appropriate and consistent early intervention strategies, explains the need for professional learning and consistent monitoring of student progress for both English language development and special education services, outlines how to implement clear and appropriate referral processes for English learners, explains appropriate assessment accommodations and the need to raise awareness of these accommodations, and explains how to provide and how to apply appropriate English learner reclassification criteria or procedures. The Special Education Local Plan Area, or SELPA, state content lead is the Imperial County SELPA. The Imperial County SELPA provides statewide in-person and virtual training opportunities for teachers, teacher leads and coaches, support personnel, general and special education service providers, and administrators. For more information, visit the Imperial County SELPA webpage at https://www.icoe.org/SELPA/EL-SWD. The Practitioner's Guide works in conjunction with other CDE guidance documents we will be discussing today, and that is the EL Roadmap. The California EL Roadmap guidance document is derived from the EL Roadmap policy, which the California State Board of Education approved in 2017. Both the policy and the guidance document are available for free download on the CDE EL Roadmap webpage, which you can find by searching for EL Roadmap on the CDE website. The CA EL Roadmap vision is English learners fully and meaningfully access and participate in a 21st century education from early childhood through grade 12 that results in their attaining high levels of English proficiency, mastery of grade level standards, and opportunities to develop proficiency in multiple languages. This vision represents a shift in how California views English learners, emphasizing the importance of providing an aligned educational experience starting in early childhood, access to the full 21st century curriculum, and the opportunity to become biliterate or multiliterate. The EL Roadmap includes 4 interrelated principles that ground the policy and guidance. The 4 principles are assets-oriented and needs-responsive schools, intellectual quality of instruction and meaningful access, systems conditions that support effectiveness, and alignment and articulation within and across systems. The first principle, assets-oriented and needs-responsive schools, is intentionally highlighted as the first principle, since without this assets-based outlook towards English learners, none of the other principles can fully be enacted. This principle sets the foundation for the rest of the EL Roadmap. The 4 interrelated principles are further broken down into elements. The elements each represent an actionable step that a school, district, or county may take to enact the principle. While I do not have time to go over all of the elements today, I will highlight a few that relate particularly to today's topic. Under Principle 1, Assets-Oriented and Needs-Responsive Schools, Element 1E focuses on English learners with disabilities. This element states that one step that schools and districts can take to enact the principle is to develop a collaborative framework for identifying English learners with disabilities and to use valid assessment practices. Schools and districts can develop appropriate IEPs that support culturally and linguistically inclusive practices and provide appropriate training to teachers, thus leveraging expertise specific to English learners. The IEP addresses academic goals that take into account students' language development as called for in state and national policy recommendations. Under Principle 2, Intellectual Quality of Instruction and Meaningful Access, Element 2D is access to the full curriculum. This element states that one step that schools and districts can take to enact this principle is to provide English learners with access to the full curriculum, along with the provision of appropriate English learners supports and services. Element 2E is use of the student's home language. This element states that another step that schools and districts can take to enact this principle is to understand students' home language as a means to access subject matter content and as a foundation for developing English. It also calls on schools and districts, where possible, to support students to develop the home language to high levels of literacy and proficiency along with English. Under Principle 3, System Conditions that Support Effectiveness, Element 3C covers assessments. This element calls on schools and districts to develop a system of culturally and linguistically valid and reliable assessment supports that instruction, continuous improvement, and accountability for attainment of English proficiency, biliteracy, and academic achievement. Under Principle 4, Alignment and Articulation within and across systems, Element 4A covers alignment and articulation. This element calls on schools and districts to design educational approaches and programs for English learners with continuity, alignment, and articulation across grade levels and system segments, beginning with a strong foundation in early childhood or preschool and continuing through elementary and secondary levels onto graduation, post-secondary education, and career preparation. The guidance in both the Practitioner's Guide and the EL Roadmap is based on research. One of the main research reports that supports the recommendations in these guidance documents is the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine, or NASEM, report titled Promoting the Educational Success of Children and Youth Learning English, Promising Futures. A few of the key findings from this report are English proficiency development benefits from coherent and aligned instruction and can take place as an integrated process with academic content learning, in addition to designated English language development and development of bilingualism or biliteracy. This supports EL Roadmap Principle 4 and its elements, which call for alignment and articulation within and across systems to ensure that English learners, including English learners with disabilities, experience a coherent and aligned pathway that includes both designated and integrated English language development, as well as opportunities to develop proficiency in multiple languages. Bilingualism provides benefits from the capacity to communicate in more than one language, may enhance cognitive skills, and may improve academic outcomes. This finding supports the recommendations in both guidance documents to provide opportunities for English learners with disabilities to develop proficiency in the home language along with English and to capitalize on home language skills in English development. The report also states that establishing proper and consistent procedures and criteria for identifying, monitoring, and exiting English learners using appropriate assessment procedures while developing professional capacity to use assessment results supports system improvement. This supports the Practitioner's Guide's recommendations for establishing clear and consistent procedures and criteria for each of these steps. In particular, it is important to have staff with experience with both English language acquisition and bilingualism on the IEP team and to make reclassification decisions with the IEP team involved. This may include a reading specialist who can distinguish between a language need and a disability. The report also emphasizes that the diversity of the English learner population, including newcomers, long-term English learners, students with interrupted formal education, students with disabilities, gifted and talented students, and the expected continuous exiting of students from the EL category necessitates pedagogy and educational support services that are differentiated and responsive. This finding supports the California EL Roadmap guidance that there is no one-size-fits-all approach that works for all English learners, and that any approaches must be responsive to the individual student, including students with IEPs. Another report that supports the guidance in both documents is the Council of Chief State Schools Officers, English Learners with Disabilities Guide, a guide for states creating policies on the identification of and service provision for English learners with disabilities. Similar to the NASM report, this report also states that state frameworks for identifying EL students with disabilities should be created through and should highlight collaboration between EL, special education, and general education personnel, which both CDE documents call for. This report also emphasizes the need for interventions to prevent inappropriate special education referrals. The Practitioner's Guide calls for early intervention to reduce referrals for special education services and pre-referral targeted instructional strategies within a multi-tiered systems of support framework. This report also recommends culturally and linguistically responsive practices, which both guidance documents call for. The Practitioner's Guide cites EC section 56320, which states that assessments must be provided and administered in the language and form most likely to provide accurate information on what the student knows and can do academically, developmentally, and functionally, unless it is not feasible to provide or administer. Multidisciplinary team members assessing ELs determine through multiple measures which language used during assessment will provide the most reliable result. They review and evaluate the English interpersonal communication skills or document the current results of the English language proficiency assessments for California and include data from the formal and informal assessments that measure the literacy-related aspects of language to determine the best language for assessment. The guidance document goes on to provide additional guidance about making this recommendation for English learners who are being assessed for special education services. Finally, this report states that IEP teams should include individuals with expertise in second language acquisition, bilingual or English language development certified staff, or other staff who can address the impact of language and culture on students' goals and services. The Practitioner's Guide states that although not required by the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, the Office of Special Education Programs gave guidance citing that it is important for IEP teams for English learners with disabilities to include persons with expertise in English language development and other professionals, such as speech language pathologists who understand how to differentiate between limited English proficiency and a disability. The participation of these individuals on the IEP team is highly recommended in order to develop appropriate academic and functional goals for the child and provide specially designed instruction and the necessary related services to meet these goals. Thank you for allowing me to share information about these two key documents. If you have questions about either document, please contact me by phone at 916-319-0265 or by email at ggarciasmith@cde.ca.gov.
Thank you for viewing Supporting English Learners with Disabilities. Access the discussion questions to deepen your learning on this topic with your colleagues. Make sure to watch the next video in the series, Dyslexia Guidelines Overview. Thank you.